शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये दक्षिणामूर्तिसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गणपति बप्पा जय श्री राम। So I was just doing some research on Ramayana last week, and I came across a very interesting version by one of the poets. So why was Ramayana done, or why was Rama avatar taken, and why did Sita also come down, as a consort for Rama? So of course, the standard answer we all know it is for Ravana, and the other answer is we know it is for us to have the benefit of an avatar, in human form. There's also a beautiful story, a side story, where apparently Lakshmi, who's kind of at the feet of Vishnu, is sitting, and so Vishnu is a very famous god, right? He's got visitors continuously lined up. He's got people waiting out at the door and wanting to meet, having an audience with him. So there's hardly any time that Vishnu is able to give to Lakshmi, and they're just not having a private time at all. They're constantly people coming and disturbing Vishnu for all small things. Either Vishnu or Lakshmi, whoever it is, so they keep disturbing. So Lakshmi, it seems, had a thought. Generally, husband and wives generally have some time, for them to talk, to have some private time, some beautiful time amongst themselves. So she said to Vishnu, she said, we just don't have any private time at all. All our time is just for people and their problems. So how do we achieve that? So it seems Vishnu said, so okay, let's do this. I'll be taking an avatar soon. And there we will try and have a parva wherein we can spend time with each other, and that is those 14 years where you have only Rama and Sita. And the question arose, why Lakshmana? So apparently none of the avatars, Seshnag, ever allowed Vishnu to be alone at all. He used to always be there with him in some form or the other. Even in Krishna avatar, if you see, there is Balarama who's there with him all the time. So you cannot do away with Seshnag at all. So that's the only privacy that they can get, only so much. So that's a side story. I thought I'll just quickly cover as to why Ramayana and why the 14 years. It's a sudden feeling that maybe Lakshmi had, that they wanted some private time amongst themselves. So this is a beautiful take by a poet on the story. One bit which I missed in the past stories is after finishing off the darshan at Bharadwaja Rishi Ashram, and when they go and just about to settle at Chitrakoot, they take a detour and they go and meet Atri Rishi. Okay, Atri is again one of the Sapta Rishis. Atri and Anasuya are the parents to Dattaguru, Dattatraya's parents, right? Very powerful Rishi and Rishi Patni. So they go and meet, they pay their respects to the great Rishi. Rama does, and everybody does namaskar to Atri Rishi. And Atri makes a point. He says, even as we discuss a lot of other things, Rama, let Sita go and meet Anasuya in private. Let her have an audience with Anasuya in private. So that discussion is critical. Why? Apparently, Anasuya gives a lot of inputs on how to lead a family. Because if you remember the timelines, Sita is just 18 years, right? She's just getting into an actual family kind of a situation. So Anasuya trains her into a lot of things as how a wife is supposed to live, how a husband is supposed to live, what is the duty of a household. So she trains her into all of these, because Anasuya is a pavitra, she's a pativrata. Okay, so she trains her into all of this. An important thing, she also trains Sita into the way in which life is to be led in a forest. Now this is important because we've seen Vishwamitra and Vasishtha have trained Rama and Lakshmana, but there has been no training that has happened to Sita, right, of how to lead a life in forest. So she is a complete novice, she doesn't know how to lead a life in forest at all, and she had to be trained. So it is Anasuya who actually trains her. And when she looks at Sita, she finds her completely bereft of all jewelry. She doesn't have any jewelry. She actually has only one piece of jewelry on her, and that is a chudamani. So chudamani is something like a clip that you put on your hair to hold your hair. That's the only bit of ornament that she has on her body. Everything else she has given away while she left Ayodhya. If you remember that part of the story we covered. So Anasuya actually says that because you are a Sumangali, you are a person who is married, right? You are not supposed to be without any ornaments. It is not good for the family. So she makes a lot of jewelry out of what you get in a forest. So wooden pieces, flowers, so these twigs. So she makes jewelry items out of that and makes it and then makes Sita wear it. Now this is an important part. Why this is an important part is because when Sita gets abducted, there is a part where Sita throws all her jewelry. Okay, she is actually not holding any jewelry. So which are those jewelry? It is basically the ones which Anasuya made for her. These are the ones that gets thrown at Kishkinda, near the Kishkinda mountain. We'll anyway come to that, but I thought I'll give you a link as to that these jewelry are an important part of the story. And I missed it in the last session. So we had covered till Bharat Milap. So Bharata has taken the Padukas on his head, and we also covered about the Paduka Mahima, the importance of Paduka, something that we covered in detail last time. He carries it on his head and he places it on the throne, and now he started his 14 years of rule. It is said that Bharata administered the entire kingdom so well that it grew 10 times more powerful than what Dasharatha had left as legacy. Okay, and just in 14 years. So Bharata was considered to be that good an administrator. Poets also give that benefit to Paduka. It is also a part of the Paduka Mahima. It seems the Paduka had the ability to rule even better than what Rama could have ruled. So Rama's Paduka were even better as compared to what Rama himself could have ruled, is what Vyakyankar or poets generally refer. So the 14 years of Ayodhya Rajya under Bharat prospered a real lot. So by the time Rama came back to take over his kingdom, he had 10 times larger and more effective and more powerful kingdom at his disposal, and courtesy Bharata. So they are leading their 14 years. Nothing is going to happen there on Ayodhya side, and we had left them and we had started our journey with Rama and Sita, which is where the action is going to happen in the next few weeks. So they have entered the Naimisharanya, which in itself I told is Vishnu Swarup. Okay, amongst the 108 Divya Sthala of Vishnu, this is one of the Sthala. The forest itself is a Sthala, it means a place of worship. Okay, that is Vishnu itself. They get deeper into the forest. What happens is, as they are walking, now they are deeper into the forest. So if you remember, I told in the earlier set where they were to meet a lot of rishis, it was Lakshmana who was leading the way, Sita in middle, and then Rama at the back. Now he shifts. So now it's going to be Rama in the front, Sita in the middle, and Lakshmana in the back. So Sita's middle berth is secured. Like train, if you remember, there used to be a top berth, lower berth, and the middle berth, right? So Sita's middle berth is secured. It's only the top and the lower berth are getting changed. So Rama now comes in the front because you are getting deeper into the forest. The demons are going to be that much more fiercer. So Rama wants to now face the brunt. So as they are walking, they come across a big hill. And suddenly out of nowhere, that hill comes to life and it form of a demon and then picks up Sita and starts running. So this happens to be technically the first experience of Sita getting abducted. So what Ravana does is the second experience. Okay, so this happens to be the first experience, a miniature experience for Sita of getting abducted. He starts running. Rama, in that moment of despair, for once he becomes a human, and he says, he actually wails loud, he says, did Kaikeyi Ma really know of all this, that she has put us into this trouble? Wouldn't she know that there are going to be demons and will take away my wife? And he starts crying. So Lakshmana comes and consoles, that's okay, now we need to focus on killing the demon, don't get disturbed, let's go and kill the demon. So they start running after him. They are getting into a battle with him, they are finding it very difficult to beat that particular demon. So what finally they do is they decide on a strategy. They say, let's start hitting him where it hurts him the most and start making smaller incisions. They first hit his leg, they maim him, then he falls down. Then once he falls down, then he becomes more susceptible. At that point of time, Rama goes and keeps his leg on his neck. The moment Rama's feet touches that demon on his neck, that demon suddenly realizes why he is here, his purpose of his life. He suddenly realizes and he says, Rama, it is a curse because of which I have become a demon. Your foot, as soon as you placed it on me, I have realized that I was a Gandharva who got cursed and I have become a demon, a man-eating demon. Please relieve me of this curse. The only way you can do is you have to kill me. You have to kill me bit by bit, and that is how they kill him bit by bit and then relieve him of his curse. And Sita is got back. Then they again start the journey. There they meet a lot of rishis. Those rishis are doing a lot of tapasya but getting disturbed by a lot of demons. So they have entered an area which technically now becomes an outpost of Janasthan. Janasthan itself is an outpost for Ravana. Okay? Janasthan is where Khara and Dushana, these are the two brothers who are stepbrothers to Ravana, who are manning that outpost. It's a small kingdom manned by 14,000 army which Ravana has sent. Now this is an outpost for Ravana's kingdom. Dandaka, where the Dandakaranya, is an outpost for this particular Janasthan itself. So it's like a watchtower, right? Where you place an important demon, so if there are any issues that happen, that guy is supposed to be reporting back. But the guy is dead, so there's nothing, no one to report back. But there are a lot of small demons, in that area, keep troubling the rishis. So all the rishis now come and approach Rama, and they say, you have to protect us. Okay, you have to protect us from all these demons. You have to kill all these demons. You have to proactively search and kill this demon. So it's not only killing the demons who are troubling us, you have to proactively go in search of demons and kill them. Rama does an Abhay Pradhan. Abhay Pradhan means he says, yes, I will do it. Now Sita, after Rama has promised, holds his hand and he says, why did you promise? He said, why, what is the problem? So Sita says an answer. She says, we are in a form of an ascetic. Right? We are here as Vanavasis. We have severed our relations with the kingdom, that is Ayodhya. So technically all of this is a part of the Ayodhya. Okay, because Ayodhya is the emperor. It's an empire. Right? These are all small kingdoms there. So all of this technically form a part of the Ayodhya Rajya. So we have technically severed our relationship with Ayodhya. We are living as Vanavasis, and as Vanavasis we have no duty to protect. Technically we are not in the position, we are not in responsible position to do anything. If there are demons who are going to come and trouble us, we'll kill them. Why do you want to proactively go and antagonize any of the demons, is what she says. This fear, Kamba Ramayana, Kamba covers it. He says this fear starts because she's got a premonition that there is something bad is going to happen in the future. Okay, as to why do you want to antagonize these asuras? Let them be what they are doing. If they come and trouble us, we will look into them. But Rama says no. Rama says, one is I've anyway promised. Secondly, he says, even if I am no more in active role as a king or a prince or even as a person with any specific responsibility, I will always remain a foot soldier for Ayodhya. I can never ever become anything else other than a foot soldier for Ayodhya. So I'll always be with the responsibility of taking care of all the subjects that I meet who form a part of my Ayodhya Rajya, Kosala Rajya. Now this is an important paribhasha, meaning this is an important interpretation of what Rama is to Ayodhya. We'll hold this thought for a few weeks, because when Rama goes on to kill Vali, I will try and give 4 or 5 or 6 reasons why killing Vali was valid and why he killed in the manner in which he killed is going to be valid. So we'll come to that for a logical conclusion there. One of the logics that he ends up using is, I continue to be a foot soldier of Ayodhya, Kosala Raja. So any person who's going rogue, it is my duty to proactively punish. Thus, my duty to punish demons is important, and my duty to protect the rishis is also equally important. That is a logic that Rama gives, which is a right. He is going as per dharma. So what happens is, he is protecting all the rishis. The rishis are really happy. Rishis are happy with what Rama is doing. They are able to continue with their penance, yajna, homa. All of that is something that they are able to do without any interruptions. and happily living their lives. All these rishis suddenly get a feeling, when they look at Rama. Rama is it's a very strong, muscular person and a very beautiful looking person, right? So it seems Nammadvar, he says, once you have a look at Rama, even the enemy will fall in love with him. He looks that beautiful. You can't just take away your eyes from him. So these rishis, they come and they say, Rama, we would want to embrace you. We would want to touch you. We would want to embrace you. So Ramana is a acharashila purusha, which means a person who will go by strict rules. So there are two important acharas, rules that he is always followed. One of them is that he will never ever have food cooked by anybody else. Okay, only Sita can cook food and he will partake only that food. The only time that he made a deviation was at Bharadwaja Rishi Ashram, where he partakes of food made by Bharadwaja Rishi because it was cooked in the manner in which Rama can consume. So the question that will arise is, what did he do with Shabari? Right? He partakes fruit there, right? So Shabari probably might be the other exception, but you have to remember that it was not a cooked food, it was just a fruit. So partaking fruit is still from the nature. Raw vegetables, roots, fruits are still from the nature, you can have it like that. But a cooked food, if you remember, I had specifically covered this. This is the reason I had covered. You get this ashraya dosha. Somebody who cooks not in the right frame, there is a dosha, there is a pollutant which enters the food, and Rama will not have such a food. So he is extremely acharashil, that is one. Secondly, Rama will never allow anybody else to touch him. Okay, Rama is very acharashil on that as well. The only people who are allowed to touch his mothers, brothers and his wife. They are the only people who are allowed to touch him. Nobody else is allowed to touch him. So he says, no, in this avatar, you will not be able to do that. You will not be able to get that pleasure. But the next avatar is all about that only, right? So they say we would want to do Prema Bhakti with you. Prema Bhakti, we've been enjoying the saint's story. Prema Bhakti is a very unique, beautiful form of devotion which transcends all emotions. Right? It's a very beautiful way of getting devoted to your God. We've been covering stories on the saints in the morning session. So we would want to enjoy you in matrimony. That is the request that these rishis put forward to Rama. So Rama says, in this janma I am ekapatni, so there is no question of another matrimony at all. But in the next janma, there is no rejection on any marriage application. Jitna application aate hai, all are approved, everybody, right? So Krishna is all about getting married only. So there's a beautiful story to this. Krishna is undoubtedly the most complex character ever written, okay, ever taken avatar. Very difficult to understand, fathom the depth and expanse of that avatar is extremely difficult. So Narada, it seems, goes to Vishnu and he asks, who's the most Naishtika Brahmachari and a Sada Upavasi? Okay, Naishtika Brahmachari means a celibate. Okay, who's the best celibate and who's the person who is always fast? Sada Upavasi, which means person who never eats, always fasts. So Vishnu gives a very interesting answer. Narada thinks he will talk of himself, but Vishnu doesn't take Narada's name. He says, Naishtika Brahmachari, only Krishna can be qualified as Naishtika Brahmachari, and only Durvasa can be qualified as a Sada Upavasi. Narada is all side. Krishna has got 60,000 gopikas in his life. There is not a single application that is rejected on marriage. How can you call him as Naishtika Brahmachari? How is he even a Brahmachari? So Vishnu explains, he says, Krishna is complete supreme consciousness. All his wives are devoted, and the only relationship they have between them is that of a devotee and God. Okay? The best example for Naishtika Brahmachari hence is only and only Krishna. He doesn't even name Hanuman. The only example that I can give you is Krishna. He said that is okay, but how come Durvasa becomes the Upavasi? Durvasa, I don't know if you know, is a rishi who always gets angry and keeps cursing. He cannot stay without food at all. He is a pot-bellied rishi who cannot stay without food at all. He continuously keeps eating. Now Narada asks Vishnu, how come you say that he's a Sada Upavasi? So he says, go and ask Krishna how the Durvasa is a Sada Upavasi. He goes and asks Krishna. He says, whatever Durvasa eats, every food that he takes into his mouth, the word that he utters is Krishnarpanamastu, which means everything that he eats, he offers it to me. So everything that he eats comes to my stomach, it doesn't go to him at all. So he's continuously fasting. Okay? The reason, the story why I gave this a Sadavapasi story is because everything that we offer, when we offer it to God and do it, any of our actions, be it actions, be it studying, be it driving, be it doing our office work, be it eating, be it puja, when we offer it to God, it directly reaches God. Then it is no more, that karma doesn't get applied to us at all. Durvasa is eating, it's actually going to his stomach, right? He's become a full pot-bellied rishi. But all the effects are going to Krishna. So when he eats, Krishna burps. Okay? He overeats, Krishna has gastric issues. Okay? So basically everything is getting offered to Krishna because every nivala, that is a word in Hindi, every mouthful that he has, Durvasa always says it is Krishnarpanamastu. Everything is offered to Krishna. And that is the way Durvasa lived. So I thought I'll just quickly give you that story. So all rishis are wanting to get into matrimony with Rama. Rama rejects and he says, next avatar is only for you all. It is only for bhakti, right? For people who want to do bhakti with me. And that is the avatar of Krishna. So Rama says this is not the avatar, but he still blesses them anyways. And in this manner, 10 years go by. Okay? So 10 years is something, if there are children who are watching, the first standard till 10th standard, 10 years go by in bliss, fairly managing demons, being with rishis, all of this is something that Rama and Lakshmana and Sita are doing and going in happy peace. Now, after 10 years, it's almost no 11th year, Rama decides that it is time that he meets Agastya. It's almost at the fag end of the Vanavas. So he says, I would want to meet Agastya. Agastya again is one of the Sapta Rishi, Sapta Brahma Rishi. He's a dwarf. Okay? So they go on journey to meet Agastya. I'll just quickly spend some time to understand the importance of a sage like Agastya. And this is something that we'll do time and again. As we touch upon different stories, I'll try and do a small deviation and explain the importance of that rishi or that person. So when we touch upon Ravana, I'll try and spend some half an hour only on Ravana. Right? When we touch upon Hanuman, we've already covered Hanuman, and anyway try and cover Hanuman again. The reason why we should do that is because we need to understand those characters as well as we are covering the main Ramayana. So Agastya is one of the most important 7 Brahma Rishis, right? It seems what happens is once there is this mountain range called Vindhya Parvata, right? It's a mountain range. It's a range like Sahyadri range, the Nilgiris, the Himalayan range. It's one of the ranges which encompasses your middle India, okay, central India. So if you see the geography, the topography, it is a very flat range, okay? It doesn't have too much of altitude. So what happens in our Puranas, mountains, trees, rivers, they have life and they can speak, they can grow, that's how our Puranas are. So it's like Narnia, right? Where everything can speak, right? So our ancestors could think of such fairy tales years back. So this Vindhya mountain suddenly realizes that Himalaya has got too much of importance, I should grow taller than it. So Vindhya starts growing its size. It suddenly grows taller than Himalaya, and he now suddenly feels that he should grow even taller. And as he starts growing, sun is traveling on his rath. So although we understand sun doesn't move, it's earth which moves, but in our Purana, sun is on a ratha, okay? He's on a ratha with 7 horses. So it started obstructing the path of the sun. He's grown so tall that he's already started obstructing the path of the sun. It's becoming very difficult. And Vindhya is being adamant and he's having a fun. He's having a fun that Surya has to take a detour and then bypass and go and stuff like that. So he's having a fun at Surya and nature. So all the rishis and everybody approach Brahma and they say, what is this? You created a monster. This guy doesn't seem to be understanding his purpose and is growing in his size. No, I cannot do anything, you go and meet Agastya. So they go and meet Agastya. Agastya says, okay, I'll try and do whatever I can. And he starts walking downwards. He's staying in the north, he starts walking towards the central India. The moment Vindhya sees Agastya, it goes down. Okay, it goes down because Agastya is a very great rishi. So out of respect, it goes down and it says, I will make your journey easy. So I will shorten my height completely so that you can bypass and go to the south of India. So Agastya says, very good Vindhya, do that. Can you also do me an additional favor? Can you remain in the same height? I'll go and wait for my return. So that again I don't have to ask you to get your size down. Agastya comes to the south and never returns north. Okay. So that is the reason Vindhya mountain remains a little flattish kind of a mountain range. This is just an example as to why a range is flattish. Okay. Agastya also happens to be called as father of Tamil language. Technically, Kartikeya Swami is the person who actually initiates Tamil language to Agastya. But the mortal form, Agastya becomes the rishi who becomes the father of the language. Tamil has a very unique state. Okay, Tamil is not a Janya, which means Janani is Sanskrit, right? Most of the languages in India owe their allegiance, owe their origin to Sanskrit. Tamil is an independently created language. Sanskrit got created by Shiva's Damaru, and Kartikeya creates a parallel language called Tamil. Okay, so it's a parallel language with no relation to Sanskrit at all. Okay, a lot of people say Tamil is the oldest language and all. It is wrong. Okay, it has to be wrong because it is based on evidences. They have found an evidence which is a manuscript which probably predates the oldest manuscript found in Sanskrit. But that itself is not an evidence, right? Because ours is a Shruti Smruti culture. Vedas are spoken, heard, remembered, and that's the way our culture has been coming for years. So writing came in very late, right? So very good chance that those things were never written. So the manuscript of Sanskrit being later dated as compared to the Tamil manuscript, a very good chance. Some manuscripts would have also got lost. So there is no question or no doubt that Sanskrit is the oldest language. So if there are a lot of new theories that keep coming that Tamil seems to be the oldest language, it is based on very a premature evidence that they have in hand. Okay. It is said that Agastya was so wise and so knowledgeable that you club all the rishis in the north between Himalaya and Vindhya, they will still not match to the knowledge and wisdom of Agastya in south. He was that knowledgeable and wise as a rishi, and a very powerful one. There is a very beautiful couple of stories on Agastya I will quickly try and cover. So Shiva and Parvati are getting married in Kailasha, and the entire Srishti has gone there to witness the marriage. Okay, that marriage, and post that marriage, Shiva does an Ananda Tandavam. So Tandava has got multiple types. There is a Rudra Tandavam and there is also an Ananda Tandavam. So an Ananda Tandavam doesn't cause destruction, it causes creation. Okay, so Ananda Tandavam is out of happiness. A Rudra Tandavam is done when there has to be a destruction. So they are doing an Ananda Tandavam there. Now Agastya is also wanting to come, but Shiva stops him. Shiva says, you don't come because the entire Srishti has come to Kailasha. There is a tilt of balance. So I would suggest you be there in the south of India so that there is a balance created in Srishti. So Agastya doesn't get to come to Kailasa to witness the marriage. So Agastya says this is unfair only because you think I can do a balancing act, you are not allowing me to witness such a beautiful occasion. So he says, don't worry, I will give you a live telecast of what is happening here at a place called Chidambaram. Okay, Chidambaram happens to be the most important temple for Shiva. So I'll give you a live telecast there. You can have a look at the entire thing as if you are seeing it at Kailasha itself. So that live telecast of Ananda Tandavam is what gets represented in Chidambaram as Nataraja. Okay, so the presiding deity in Chidambaram is Nataraja, and that is the day when this Ananda Tandavam happens is Tiruvadarai. It is a festival which Tamilians would know in the group, gets celebrated in sometime in December. December end it comes, December end, sometime gets shifted to Jan. So Tiruvadarai is the festival which commemorates the Ananda Tandavam that is done there, which gets live telecast for to Agastya. There is another beautiful story of two demons and how Agastya kills those demons, and this is a story of Vatapi Ilvala. Vatapi is one, Ilvala is the second one. So Vatapi and Ilvala are two demon brothers, very cunning, sly, demons. Now Vatapi had a boon. Now what is this boon? He had a boon that you cut into pieces, okay? After a while he can join himself again and become Vatapi, okay? So this is like the Terminator, you know, this Terminator, there's a future robo who comes from the future and you know, with what that liquid, whatever, I don't know. You break him into different pieces, he will again, due to heat, again joins and becomes one person. So Vatapi is like that, right? So Vatapi is a person you cut into pieces, he will again join back into one person. So what these demons do, Vatapi will go, Ilvala will go as a Brahmin, will disguise himself as a Brahmin. He will meet a Rishi and he will entice him and he will say, oh you are such a great Rishi, why don't you do this puja to me for me or that puja for me, come to my home. And he will invite and he will serve food. Now the food that he serves would be Vatapi being cut into pieces and cooked into a food and then served to the Rishis. Okay, so there are two things into this. Okay, one is whether Rishis had non-veg. Okay, so this is a typical question that I encounter, whether Rishis had non-veg. So there were some Rishis who had because they originally belonged to different castes. So Rishis necessarily are not Brahmins by nature. Okay, they are not necessarily from a Brahmin caste. Valmiki was not a Brahmin, right? So there are many such Rishis who probably were not Brahmins, who were Kshatriya. Vishwamitra was not a Brahmin, he was a Kshatriya, right? So by their Swadharma they were allowed to have non-veg. Okay, one. Two, Vatapi Ilvala when he was cooking, he didn't necessarily tell them that this is a non-veg. So he just cooked like a big pot of vegetables and served. After eating, Ilvala will ask, are you satisfied? How was the food? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? The moment they say yes, Annadato Sukhi Bhava, he will say, Vatapi, come out. And then Vatapi will burst open from the stomach, kill the Rishi, and then these guys will eat that Rishi. So this is what they have been doing as a regular for their food. Okay, demons, they don't go to market to buy grocery. This is what they used to do. Agastya is a Brahma Rishi, you know what is happening, right? Ilvala comes and invites Agastya. He says, come, why don't you come and do some puja for me, I will also feed you and so on. Agastya happily goes. He goes, he also has the food. Vatapi is getting cooked, he also has the food. He asks him, Ilvala asks him, Agastya, he says, are you happy? Are you happy with the food? He says, I'm very happy and I'm very happy that I had the food that you served me. Then Ilvala asks, Vatapi, come out. Agastya says, Vatapi Jirno Bhava. He just drives his hand like this. He says, Vatapi Jirno Bhava, which means, Vatapi, please get digested in your stomach. Okay? Vatapi is dead. There is no Vatapi coming out of Agastya's stomach. So Ilvala is all petrified. He picks his axe and he wants to come and hit Agastya. Agastya just opens his eyes and burns Ilvala. Have you seen Superman? The way he burns through his laser? Yeah? So Agastya just does that and Ilvala also gets burned. So this is the story of Agastya. There is another beautiful story. Kalakeya. So you remember this name from Bahubali, right? So Kalakeyas are basically Danavs. So Danavs are different from Asuras. Okay? Asuras live in Asura Lok. Danavs are in Patal Lok. And Danavs are a little bit sly, very slimy guys, okay, cunning fellows. So they are not generally, Asuras will not associate themselves with Danavs also. So Danavs, apparently Kalakeya as a group, they go and hide because of some war with Indra, they go and hide in the ocean. And Indra is not able to search. He goes and asks Brahma, he says the only person who can help is Agastya. So Agastya goes and drinks the entire ocean. Okay, he takes into his Achaman. Achaman is what you do in your Sandhyavandana, right? He just takes it like this and he just 3 times he takes this and he just drinks the entire ocean. Digests the entire ocean, and then if they find the Danavs down and then Indra goes and kills. Now Indra comes back to Agastya and says, now you can get the sea out. He said, what get the sea out? I have digested, I cannot get the sea out and down. So Agastya walks away. So they all go and running to Brahma and they say, well, you have dried up the entire ocean, what do we do? He says, don't worry, then Bhagiratha will come in Ikshvaku's family. Bhagiratha will come and get Ganga down. When Ganga starts flowing, she will fill up the entire ocean, and that's how the entire ocean again gets filled up. This is as per our Puranas. Such a great Rishi whom Rama goes and meets, and this is an important meeting because there are a couple of things Rama gets which are very important from a war perspective. So when he goes to meet Agastya, he does the namaskar, and then Agastya trains him in Brahmastra. This is one of the theories. Okay, one of the versions of Ramayana says that Brahmastra was trained by Agastya to Rama. Agastya also gives Vishnu Dhanush, which was created by Vishwakarma, and the quiver. Quiver is the place which you hold where you keep arrows. Okay, he gives a quiver which will never get empty. Okay, so this is an important quiver which he gives to Rama, which again becomes very useful in the fight. One of the reasons why Rama also goes and meets Agastya. And then Agastya suggests them, now that you have come out of Dandaka, why don't you go and stay in Panchavati? It's a very beautiful place. You can spend your rest of your Vanavas there. You can go and spend your time on Godavari Tat. Godavari is the river which flows near Nasik. Panchavati is near Nasik. So they go there. So they start walking to that particular place. As they are walking to that particular place, at a distance they see a huge bird on a tree. And it is not a normal bird, it is a giant-sized bird. They suddenly are petrified. They say, probably this is some again demon. So Rama and Lakshmana are ready with their swords and bows and arrows and they are ready with that. So suddenly Jatayu says, no, don't worry. I am Jatayu. I am the youngest brother of Sampati and son of Aruna. Okay, that is what he says. So who are these? Sampati and Jatayu are vultures. They are son of Aruna. Aruna is the elder brother of Garuda. Okay, Garuda we know, right? Vahan for Vishnu. So Kashyapa had two wives, Kadru and Vinita. Okay, so Kadru has thousands of snakes. That is what she gives birth to. And Vinita gives birth to two eggs. Okay, one egg becomes Aruna. So because Kadru has given birth and her children are already born, she is very impatient and she breaks open the egg. And there is a half-formed vulture, okay, like a Garud form that comes out. It doesn't have legs, it only has body and upper part. And he says, Mother, you hastened up, you should have waited for the egg to ripen, but that's okay. You wait completely for the second egg to ripen and break open. A very important person is going to come from there, but I will go up. So he goes up and he becomes a charioteer to Surya. Okay, so Surya is riding on a chariot of 7 horses. The charioteer name is Aruna, who is elder brother for Garuda. So when you see sunrise happening, the first ray of light that you see, even before sun has appeared, we call it as Aruna. Okay, that ray of light is called as Aruna. Why it is called as Aruna? Is because Aruna himself is the charioteer. He appears first and then sun appears. Okay. So this Aruna had 2 children, one is Jatayu and Sampati, and both become great important people in Ramayana as a story we all know. So he says, I am Jatayu, I have assisted your father Dasharatha in... So he asks, who are you? He says, I am Dasharatha Nandan Ram. So he says, I have assisted your father in battles, so I am here to help you, don't worry Rama. I know I have aged, but you don't worry, you can go and set up your hut in this particular place. And if you both happen to go out for hunting or anything, I will protect Sita, you don't worry, she is like a daughter to me. That is what Jatayu promises. And that is the reason he keeps that promise. We, of course, know the story that happens. So this is a Jatayu meeting that happens with Rama and Lakshmana. Now they go further into Panchavati and a beautiful place they find for themselves. And he says, Lakshmana, set up a good hut here. Now Lakshmana sets off with his job of setting up a beautiful hut. He sets up a beautiful place, a nice a kitchen area, a dining area, okay, a beautiful bedroom, nice a patio outside to sit, a pond, all of that Lakshmana quickly creates. We know how he creates, right? He's been trained into all that. Now what happens is, then he takes through, when we go and buy houses, what happens? We are shown the sample flat, right? Demo dikhate hain. Chalo, sample flat dikhate hain. So Lakshmana says, come, I'll show you, take you through the tour of the house. So he says, this is the kitchen, this is the place where we can sit and dine, bhaiya. And he shows a particular room, okay? And the room is very beautifully made. So the room is made in a mezzanine floor, okay? And Rama sees that and he says, why have we created this room? So he says, this room is being created so that you and Bhabhi can have some private moments amongst you all. You all want to talk something, you all want to spend some time together. But Rama is filled with so much of emotion, he starts crying. He embraces Lakshmana. And he says this, he says, Lakshmana, I am so sorry you lost your father, but I didn't lose my father. And thus he embraces Lakshmana. So Yakyankar spent a lot of time in this particular shloka. It says, why did Rama say he did? Father to common hai na, dono ke liye Dasharath, and he died 10 years back, right? So why did Rama say to Lakshmana that I'm so sorry you lost your father, you are an orphan, but I didn't lose my father? Is because Lakshmana took care of Rama like a father. He created a house where Rama can live comfortably. He's taking care of Rama as if he's his son, right? He's saying, you might have lost your father, but I still see my father in you. That is the meaning. You as a father are doing such a great service and taking care of me. Who else can do this apart from a father? That is what Rama means. It's a very beautiful emotional moment for Rama and Lakshmana. And they're spending their time beautifully. One winter morning, Rama goes and tries to take bath, puts his foot in the Godavari and it is chill. Okay? So he gets his leg out, and once he gets his leg out, then he's got tears in his eyes. Rama asks, why, what happened, Lakshmana? Why is it so cold that you have started crying? So, no, it is cold here, it's winter. I'm just thinking of what is Bharata experiencing. It is further in north, it will be far more cold there. I don't know how he's taking bath, and just like we are living in a forest, he also is living in a village and like us. So how is it that he's taking bath? This is how they spend time. Why I covered this story is because these are the memories with which they live. 14 years that they lived, they are continuously thinking about each other. They were such close brothers that in their thought, they always thought about each other. So Lakshmana cries, Rama consoles him, don't worry, our period of test is coming to an end. We are going to soon meet each other and we are going to live in a palace. Don't worry at all our bad days are going to go away. Now he doesn't know that bad days are still to come, and then further traumatic days are going to come. So that is what happens in Panchavati, but they are spending their time very beautifully. It's a very beautiful place. Panchavati happens to be about 150, 200 kilometers from Mumbai. Okay, it's not very far. So now we'll come to the important segment of Shurpanakha, right? So what happens is, one beautiful morning, Rama, Lakshmana got up, they have had their bath. When we are happy, when things are nice, we generally also are in a little mischievous mood, right? We generally, there's a spring in our foot, as we say. We are very light-hearted, we are in a jovial mood. So one good morning, Rama, Lakshmana, Sita are having a very nice time. It's a beautiful morning, birds chirping, animals drinking water, and very beautiful and spring in the foot. Shurpanakha is flying on the top. This is a part of the Janasthan, right, where Kharadushna's outpost. So she is flying on the top. Shurpanakha is who? Okay, so let's arrive at Shurpanakha and cover a little bit about her also. So Shurpanakha happens to be the stepsister for Ravana. She is not the own sister, as misunderstood commonly. Ravana had Kumbhakarna and Vishnu as his brothers, but Shurpanakha and Kharadushna technically are stepsisters and brothers. So Shurpanakha is a stepsister for Ravana. She does get married. Okay, she gets married to a Danav, okay, called Vidyut Mali. There are a couple of names given. There is one called Vidyut Jiva. There is also someone called as Durbuddhi. Okay, that is the name. So there are multiple versions on that. The most commonly used is Vidyut Mali. He is a Danav. Now Ravana was not happy with the marriage. Okay, and we thought only our times we have people without brothers and parents approving marriages. Even Ravana didn't approve his sister's marriage. He didn't like Vidyut Mali at all. Danavs are very sly people, very cunning, slimy guys. So these are asuras, right? So he didn't want to marry off his daughter, his sister, to a sly, slimy guy. So he doesn't approve the marriage. But Shurpanakha still insists on getting married to him, gets married. And with great difficulty, Mandodari, who's Ravana's wife, convinces. And she says, okay, it's okay, now you have become a son-in-law, so we'll give you whatever respect you are entitled to, just like an upakar. So in one of the functions, what happens, this guy is a very selfish guy, this Vidyut Mali. Out of a lot of selfish motive, a lot of jealousy towards Ravana, in a spur moment of anger, he comes to kill Ravana. Ravana is a powerful demon, right? He's an asura. He comes to kill Ravana. Ravana in one stroke just kills off Vidyut Mali. So technically what has happened is, Shurpanakha has become a widow because of her own brother, right? This is an important part of the story. That's the reason I covered this. You have to remember this. Why I told this will come forward. So Shurpanakha has become a widow. Now what happens to Shurpanakha's life is na gharka na ghatka, right? She's staying with Ravana, but then she sometimes comes and stays with Kharadushana. She has got no purpose in life, no children. So first of all, she's a demon, right? And then there is no purpose in life. So she's become even more evil out of that. So in this one of these moments in her journeys where she's come to Janasthan, she's flying over. Valmiki has spent 5 full shlokas in only describing Shurpanakha. So Shurpanakha is apparently flying on the top, Rama is down, Valmiki is watching both of these guys and it is written 5 shlokas comparing Rama and Shurpanakha. Now technically a poet needs to compare Shurpanakha with Sita, right? A female to a female. But Valmiki has spent 5 shlokas comparing Rama and Shurpanakha. And he says Shurpanakha is how she is apparently an ugly lady, okay, copper-haired lady, okay, with a copper color. Her varna, her body color is also copper color, okay, brassy, hoarse voice, okay, deplorably oldish. She is a very old, ugly-looking lady, an ill-mannered girl. She can't even talk properly. Crooked talker and a filthy girl, which means she smells also bad, okay, and compares Rama as the opposite. All of this, imagine Rama in the opposite, okay, that's how he compares Rama and technically Valmiki should have compared Sita, but he compares Rama and Shurpanakha. Now this Shurpanakha is flying, she finds Rama and Lakshmana, handsome guys, extremely good looking. So Shurpanakha is completely bowled over, okay, and is completely fallen in love with Rama. So she gets down. Now she's a magical asura, right? She can assume different forms. So she assumes a very beautiful lady, form of a beautiful lady, and she then comes. A quick deviation. Ravana, apparently, when God wrote his fate, he made him very powerful. Okay? And then he said, such a powerful person, I cannot give him any disease, because he, see, when we all are born, we generally have diseases, right? Cold, cough, COVID, whatever, you know. So we all have diseases, right? But when he wrote Ravana's fate, he couldn't find a place to put in disease at all. So he said, what do I do? So he created a whole monster in a form of a disease called Shurpanakha. Okay? So Shurpanakha was a disease in Ravana's life. He made him so powerful that he had to make a separate disease, give a human form, a demon form to that disease. So a parallel is India and Pakistan. India, God made it so powerful that he decided to give a disease by its in the form of Pakistan. Sorry, I know this is going to go on YouTube, but I thought I would add that joke. Okay. So what happens is she's come down as a beautiful lady, and she comes and she walks right in front of Rama. Now Rama would have kept quiet, okay, but Rama was in a mischievous mood that day. And so was Lakshmana. So he sees Shurpanakha and he says, oh maiden, why are you here? You know, who are you and why are you here? So she is also very emboldened. The moment Rama has spoken the first word, she is also very emboldened. She says, she starts saying what? She doesn't talk about herself. She first talks of Ravana. Do you know Ravana? Lankadhish Ravana, who lifted the Kailasha mountain, who is a great Shiva Bhakta, who got multiple boons from Brahma himself, who's got 10 heads, who knows all Vedas and Shastras. Rama says, hold on, who are you to him? Why are you telling me about Ravana? Who are you to him? You tell me that first. So he says, I am that great demon's sister. And she says it with a lot of pride. And she goes on to add herself, I am that beautiful sister of Ravana. She calls herself as beautiful. Now just quickly take a small deviation here. It is the same comparison that Vibhishana, when Vibhishana comes for Sharanagati, he also says all of this to Rama, and he says, I am disgraced that he is my brother. He is ashamed of having a brother like Ravana, while Shurpanakha is proud of having a brother like Ravana. You know, there is a difference. So he says, I am Ravana's sister. Kharadushana, who happened to be the king of this particular Janasthan, are also my brothers. They are so powerful. I am a sister of such powerful brothers. And she asks, who are you? Rama has only one introduction. He just says, I'm Dasharathanandam Ram. Right? That is the way one has to introduce oneself. One should never just say who are you, one should never say just his name. He's supposed to tell his name along with his father's name. So he says, I'm Dasharathanandam Ram, and this is my younger brother Lakshman. Sita is actually inside the house. She is not yet come out. Maybe one of the reasons why Lakshmana and Rama are having a flirty moment here. Okay, because Sita is not looking at them. So now, because there is discussion that is happening, Surpanaka, he now asks Rama, why are you here? Why have you come here? Surpanaka says, I am fallen in love with you and I would like to marry you. Okay? So actually she is hitting on Rama, and we thought only it happens in today's world. It probably happened lakhs of years before also. So Surpanaka is actually hitting on Rama, and she says, I would want to marry you. You are such a beautiful and handsome, young, powerful man. I would like to marry you. So Rama says, oh, that is not possible. I am already married. So she says, that's okay, even I was married. That is not a problem. So I can live with your other wife also. So no, so that is not the problem. The problem is that I will not get married the second time. That is my promise to her. So I cannot get married second time. But do you see that handsome guy there? This is all in the mischief mood, okay? Do you see that handsome guy there? He goes on to say he doesn't have wife. Will Rama tell a lie? We know that Lakshmana is already married, right? So why will Rama tell a lie? So he doesn't tell a lie, he tells a partial truth. He says, I have a wife. Why? Because he has a wife with him now, right there. Right? When he says Lakshmana doesn't have a wife, he actually means Lakshmana doesn't have a wife now, right now, here. Okay, that is what he means. His wife is there somewhere in Ayodhya. So he says, hey Lakshmana, he's also a very handsome guy. You approach him. I am not a suitable suitor for you. So he goes to Lakshmana and he says, I would want to marry you. You are also as good looking and as powerful. Lakshmana says, what a horrible choice you have. I am just a servant to my elder brother. You marry me, what is going to happen to you? You will also become a servant. Do you want to live as a servant? Well, what use it is? Don't get into that at all. Remain like that only. I am not a good suitor for you. She again comes to Rama. But Rama says, no, I am not a proper suitor. So this is happening for a while when Sita comes out. The moment Sita comes out, Shurpanaka sees Sita and she is extremely jealous because Sita, even without any of this makeup that Shurpanaka has put on herself, she is resplendent like sun, right? I mean, she is extremely beautiful. And she realizes that Rama is not marrying her because of that Sita, right? So the problem, the jad, the root cause is Sita. So what she does is, she shouts at Sita and she says, I am going to kill you. The moment she utters the word and springs into action, Rama from the right side quickly shouts, Lakshmana, I will protect Sita, you take care of this problem, goes and stands in front of Sita. Even before Surpanaka started her jump, Lakshmana has caught his sword, he sprung into action, cuts off her nose, pulls her ears, cuts off her ears also. Even before she's done anything, in a deft movement, in split second, all this has happened. Surpanaka has just uttered the word that now I'm going to kill you. She probably not even finished her sentence. Rama is already in front of Sita. Lakshmana is already in action, cut off his nose and the ears. Now she is shouting in pain. He not only cuts it, he also holds her hand and tells, take this in your hand. Okay? This is your nose and ears, take it in your hand. Now this, what happens is she is crestfallen. Now, why she is crestfallen? One is she has anyway been humiliated by this joke that Rama and Lakshmana played in their mischief mood. Also, nose and ears are where you wear this earring and nose ring. Okay? Now, I was spending some time on this. They say nose ring and earring are the only two ornaments a lady wears for others to see. She herself can never see it. Right? She can only see it in a mirror. Right? So it is an ornament which she wears. Bangles you can see, pile you can see, chain also you can see like this. But nose ring and earring are the only ornaments which a woman wears for others to see. And that itself is cut. So she is very horribly humiliated. And she is crying and she is vowing revenge. And she says, I am going to take revenge on you and I am going to go back to my powerful brothers and get them to kill you. Typical, anyone will do that. Oh, it's already 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, I completely forgot the flow of time. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stop at this revengeful moment for Shurpanakha, and we will gather the story when she goes and meets Karadushan, and how Karadushan gets all his 14,000 army and tries to kill Rama, and then how they go and meet then Ravana, and then how Ravana then comes, and then Ravana's story, and then the entire story pans out, the kidnapping and all of that will come in the next following weeks. So I'm completely lost track of time, I'm so sorry. So I think we will end the story with Shurpanakha being humiliated by Rama and Lakshmana, and rightly so. She deserved it, probably even more. But she was left at that because she was a woman, so they will not lay her hand on a woman. Because she came to kill, that is the reason Lakshmana ensures that her nose is removed. This place, Nashika, which means place where there is no nose, okay, that becomes Nasik, the one Nasik that we know, which is near Bombay. A beautiful place, right? But the origin of the place is because Shurpanakha's nose got cut there. So I'll stop the story at this place, and then we'll correct it in the next week. Was I completely audible without any loss of connection? Yeah, clear? Great. Thanks a lot. Are there any questions you all want to ask? Feel free. No questions? Very good. So we'll carry on with Hanuman Chalisa and close the day. Yeah? Great. Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raja Nij Mana Mukur Sudhari Baranau Raghuvar Bimal Jasu Jodayak Upalachari Buddhihin Tanu Janike Sumiro Pavan Kumar Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohe Harahu Klesha Vikar Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar Jai Kapi Satihu Loka Ujagar Duta Tulita Baladhama Anjani Putra Pavana Sutanama Mahavira Vikrama Bajarangi Kumati Nivara Sumati Kesangi Kanchana Varana Viraja Subesa Kanana Kundala Kunchita Kesa Hat Vajra और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगबंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को वातुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज सवारे वन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई सहस बदन तुम रोयस गावे अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा जम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाते कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा राम मिलाए राजपद दीना तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना जुग सहस्र योजन पर भानु लील्योता ही मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माही जल दिलांग गए अचरज नाही दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज सम्हारो वापे तीनों लोक हांकते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासे रोग हरे सब पीड़ा जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा संकट के हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों जुग पर ताप तुम्हारा है पर सिद्ध जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई और देवता चित्तन धरही हनुमत से ही सर्व सुख करई संकट कटई मिटई सब पीड़ा जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई ये शत बार पाठ करे कोई छूट ही बंदी महासुख होई जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा होए सिद्धि सा की गौरी सा। तुलसीदास सदा हरिचेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुर भूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की
जय।
के बोलो हनुमान की
जय।